Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old Fourth Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Hello, and thank you for listening, whether it's on America One Radio, Progressive Voices, both of them with apps, via TuneIn as well, and, of course, via podcast. We thank you so much for that. I also want to thank my guest this morning, Maura Keller. Maura is running for Congress in Georgia's 3rd Congressional District, currently held by former Trump acolyte, I'd say still current, honestly, Brian Jack. And Maura, thank you so much for joining us. We were talking off the air about folks running for Congress or any office, actually, in the state of Georgia, knowing that there's an uphill climb. You served in the military. You know a lot about overcoming tall odds. So talk to me about what motivates you to make, this is, by the way, your second go at this, much like our guest yesterday, Lexi Doherty, your second go at this, and you're off and running good and early to make sure that you're getting the word out, meeting enough people, and, of course, the fundraising matters, too. So what motivates you to make a second go of it?
Because I saw the movement that we actually made during our last time. And it was the first time in 20-something years they told me that they had saw us go more democratic than ever. Mm-hmm. And, and then when you see exactly what's going on in just a short amount of time, it's like, no, there's no way I can sit on the sidelines. I'm still ready to serve. So let's get back on the horse, and we got a job to do.
So just looking quickly, and I know this is just horse trading here, when you're looking at the election results from November, obviously you've got about a 140,000 vote gap to make up. Do you think those numbers are there? Is there a batch of folks sitting on the sidelines? Are there minds to change? What is the goal? What is the agenda as far as overtaking that district?
It's on so many different levels. First of all, we did see a lot of people that did not come out to vote because they still believe that their voice and their vote doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Because this district has made it known for so long through the media that this is a heavily red district and a Republican's going to win. Yeah. So trying to get people to believe otherwise was one thing. I've actually had, since the election, Republicans and independents come up to me and say, Maura, this is not what we voted for. I wish I voted for you. So, I mean, those are telling signs for me. And, I'm ready to start to work.
I went through your website to learn a little bit more about you and the issues that matter to you most, and I'm really struck by a few things. First of all, you were in the U.S. Army. You started out as a military police officer. We had situations over the weekend, the No King's Day protests, where I believe the officers on the ground in a lot of cases were in challenging positions and situations and put in scenarios where tensions get heated, and the next thing you know, through no fault of anyone's own, just the powder keg that can be, you see rubber bullets or tear gas, things of that nature. What from sitting on the sidelines and seeing some of this stuff take place, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that situation.
So yeah, I'm seeing such a huge amount of additional lawlessness on our law enforcement. And I'm really, really, really concerned about that. We are allowed to assemble for peaceful protest, and we're allowed our voices to be heard. And it really seems that somehow the message is getting out there that, no, we don't have that right.
Yeah. And
that's not what I fought for. I fought for everybody to be able to have a voice, to be heard, in America. So, yeah, I'm very, very concerned when I see that.
26 years in military service, and thank you so much for that. I understand that veterans issues, taking care of our veterans, is very high on your list of priorities. With DOJ and the evisceration, we saw a couple days ago the headline that if you are unmarried or somehow deemed a Democrat, if it's determined you're a Democrat, that the Veterans Association could somehow limit your care. What was your reaction to that headline?
Oh,
it seems asinine, right? I mean,
oh yeah. Well, having worked at the VA, and the VA is the reason that got me into the race is because I saw what was happening, coming from a leadership position in the military. We always lead. And when you see problems and issues, you go ahead and you correct them. And to not be able to make a difference, a change when you see issues, that was frustrating. So I just couldn't allow that to happen anymore. And I said, well, what can I do different other than complaining about it? And running for Congress to me was my way of saying, this is how I can get this fixed, as well as, helping everybody else. But when I saw that, I immediately did some social media posts, and I'm saying, if this doesn't change by the VA secretary or addressed by the VA secretary within 24 hours, he must resign. But you know what was interesting? So many of my fellow military that actually came out and was saying that I was fear-mongering, and that really struck me. That they believe that that's all lies, that's propaganda, that'll never happen. But we're seeing things slowly happening within the VA, and they just haven't woken up yet.
Well, this administration is hell-bent on flexing their pettiness at any opportunity given. So why is it not out of the realm of possibility for folks to see evidence of something, hear evidence of something, and come to the conclusion, well, this is just another opportunity to be petty? And I'm sorry, taking care of our veterans, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, if you're registered communist, if you served in our nation's military, you are owed a debt of gratitude, and you have earned the benefits that come to you after serving.
Absolutely. And so that's why it is so head scratching. And these are people that I actually served with. And for them not to be able to see that, I just don't know what would make them, what's going to reach them, because I have to look at what's going to happen, just not to our fellow veterans right now, but for those that are currently serving and at one point will need those benefits. I need to make sure that they are protected when it's their turn.
Yeah, this is a pretty alarming story that, of course, the Trump White House is pushing back and refuting. I want to ask you, having served in the military for 26 years and having been so committed to veterans affairs and working in government contracting after the fact, is it just me, or I just find it mystifying that the divide when it comes to the way our armed services vote, our retired veterans vote, that it's so disproportionate. Can you speak to that?
When you, I'm not sure I understand when you say disproportionate.
Republicans tend to garner an overwhelming majority of those in active duty and retired military when they come to vote.
Yeah. Again, I just have no words as to understand as to why they feel this way. And and the other thing that seems to be coming out is, and I'm not sure if I'm going to put this in the right words, but our military was open to everybody, anybody who was willing to serve.
Right.
And now what I'm seeing, it's like, if you're a woman, because I had to deal with a lot of stuff when I was in the military as a woman. I came in 1978. I was one of the first co-ed groups to go through, and they didn't know what to do with us. And, and there were limitations that were put on me in my career because of being a female, and I had to fight against them my whole career. So now I feel like we made strides. We have women in combat units. We have women in combat jobs. And now we see them trying to roll that back. Then we see them trying to roll that back from people of color that are serving in the military, and as well as people in our LGBTQ community that have been serving with honor. And to have my fellow Republican veterans to say that's okay. I again, because obviously it must have been always there.
Oh yeah.
But it was just never came out. But now the permission has been given to you to come out and speak out, and they are. And I'm in fear of where our military is going, and I'm afraid. I've had actually people tell me, I won't let my child join the military. There is no way. And if that happens, we're not going to have enough of the volunteer force. Your only job now is to either diminish our size, or you're going to have to go to the draft. Those are your two options.
So I also want to address, you spoke about joining the military and military service and the safety of those in the military when our Secretary of Defense is sharing classified information on the Signal app. And of course, now here we are flirting with war with Iran. Yeah, I think there might be parents who are rightly concerned about their children considering, military service. And to me, that's sad because I think it's a noble calling. It's one that you would hope that, young people decide to make, to serve this country for the right reasons. And in an administration where there just seems to be so much recklessness at the top, and from the president himself, disregard for those who serve in the military, suckers and losers, and the veterans, and you see how the treatment of veterans is. To me, this is all just so disheartening how we've gotten to this point. And again, that president, that party curries most of the votes that come from those who serve in the military. It's mystifying to me.
Yeah, absolutely. There are no words.
Yeah. Sure. And I'll even take it further back. This isn't just a Donald Trump problem. This goes back, in my mind, to post 9/11. We were hastily sent into Iraq with flimsy evidence that a lot of folks were pushing back on. This isn't just revisionist history or hindsight being 2020. There were a lot of questions about the evidence to go into Iraq based on the explanation given, the rationale. And yet we did it anyway, and lo and behold, we spent 2 decades in a country that we seriously, and again, hindsight tells us this, had no business being in.
Right.
Again, that's a GOP administration that did that just so recklessly.
I totally agree. It was a long war that really didn't result to much.
We're with Maura Keller. She is running to unseat Brian Jack in Georgia's 3rd congressional district. I want to talk to you about government efficiency. I feel like that's something that can be right there in your wheelhouse. We'll do that when the Ron Show returns on America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. You can follow the Ron Show on your preferred social media platforms at Ron Show ATL, Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, Substack, Blue Sky, all over them at Ron Show ATL. We're with Maura Keller. She is running to unseat Trumper Brian Jack in Georgia's 3rd congressional district. The map, I want to literally talk geography here. You have a lot of west of Atlanta, western metro Atlanta, southwest metro Atlanta, all the way down into Coweta and Douglas, Fayette, Haralson County. You go from metropolitan to, whoa, you're out there. A lot of ground to cover, but a lot of diversity of the kind of voter that you're trying to win over. How do you balance that?
Well, it's by actually going out there and talking to them, because I can't assume who everybody is. And that's what I found the first time when I went out. And it is so wide. It is so diverse. What is great where I live in Fayetteville doesn't even compare to the people living in the rural areas of Upson or Haralson. And so it's a different life, they're different needs, and you really got to sit down and find out where people are at. And that's what I'm not seeing with this current administration. They don't seem to care what the people want or need, but I do.
Your district, by the way, has been the target of data center development. Your thoughts on the immense amount of resources going into data centers and the kind of money governments are throwing at that, and the utilities. I mean, we were just voting in a public service commission primary yesterday. The way our utilities are just bending over backwards at our expense. By the way, the state government couldn't do anything about ensuring that we, the people, wouldn't see our utility bills climb because of data centers. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Wow. That's a great question because, we do have one here. We do have a lot that are trying to pop up into other counties, and they are such huge energy thieves. They do affect your environment. And right now, with the rollback that this administration has out there when it comes to environment and energy, it's going to be at the expense of the people who live in those districts. You're going to be paying more. We don't care about, how your environment is. And we've actually seen where people live near where they're building them, that they're now trying to go and build on their land to be able to lay wires or lay whatever it is. And it's like, you don't have a say. Mm. And this is not good. The intention where some of these companies come in and they're saying, hey, we're going to be paying taxes and we're going to be giving you all this money that you can use for your cities and towns where people can pay less taxes. That all sounds well and good, but what's the final payoff? And it's right now, it just seems to be at the expense of people.
Yeah, there does seem to be a rush to judgment and rush to action to bend over backwards for these data centers, no doubt about it. And listen, we live in the information age. We all have mobile devices. We all want to be able to store data, ironically enough, but at the same time, there has to be a balance in it. It's like saying, well, we all have a car. We all need to have gas in the tank and all that. Yes, but you don't want to live in Kansas Alley. I want to draw back to your military career or your post-military career, actually, because you worked as a government contractor and worked on improving the efficiency of our military forces. DOGE stole a lot of the oxygen in the room the first 100 days of the Trump presidency. Can you speak to the efficiency or inefficiency of DOGE and the methods with which they went about doing what they were doing?
All right. So first of all, there is no efficiency. Zero. They went in and with no experience, no knowledge, and just saying, we're going to cut this, we're going to cut that. There is no thought process. They don't, because anything that you touch has a domino effect. And so they have no idea what they were destroying. And you're getting rid of brain trusses. You're getting rid of all that experience. And in many cases, when they were saying they were getting rid of people in probationary times, let me tell you something. The government is not efficient when it comes to hiring. When I got hired at the VA, it took them 9 months. Yet I worked at the local hospitals and I got hired in less than 3 weeks. So here it is. We finally got people in the positions that we have been hiring. And because they're in probationary periods, we are now firing them. And so there is no thought process whatsoever. And the second thing is DOGE is going around saying, look at all the monies that we have saved. And it is all smoke and mirrors because number one, they don't even know what the heck they're looking at. There were contracts that were already done and paid. And they're saying, oh, look at what we saved you. Well, dude, it was already finished. So they're putting such a false narrative out there that people are grabbing. They're saying, see, this is what they did. It was great. The government is bloated and, it's all this fraud, waste, and abuse. And is there some? Absolutely. But not the way the DOGE is putting that out there. So, had you gone in and we had looked at each, given them a year,
right,
but to go in to do it correctly. But instead, they did the slash and burn, and now you're going to try to call back people up. There was no thought process to this whatsoever. So yeah, I am not a fan of DOGE, and yet my opponent is on the DOGE committee, and I've watched him, and it's unserious. That's the only way that I can put this. It is unserious.
Yeah, the money saved seems to be, as you mentioned, a bit of a ruse. Then there's also the word that just kept getting thrown about, fraud, which I think is doing a disservice to those who are civil servants, those who worked in our government agencies for so long, to be labeled as having taken from the taxpayer, that there were fraudulent. If there was fraud would lead to charges. They would lead to arrests, right? I mean, we've seen none of that.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly right.
But that seems to be a trend, I would say, over the last 30 or 40 years, that the size of government, the fact that government is the size that it is, never mind the fact that it's not even proportionate to the population growth of the last half century, but that is the source of the problem. When actually the inefficiency comes from not having enough personnel, not having enough funding to tackle the jobs that different bureaus in government at the state or federal level have to tackle.
And take it another step further. If we didn't continue to use issues as political talking points, we could have maybe fixed some of this. For instance, let's just go quickly, immigration.
Right.
We have to pay so much within the immigration system. Yet had we been able to work the process out over all these years, maybe we could have streamlined it more. Maybe we could have made it more efficient. We wouldn't need as many as we need. I mean that's just an easy example. But we don't go in Washington necessarily to fix stuff. And that's what we need to start doing. And we need to start being better stewards.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you have Marjorie Taylor Greens and Mike Collins and Brian Jacks in Congress, you're not getting the brain trust. You're not getting folks who have the sort of mental acuity, the skill to work across the aisle to find common ground and solve problems. You have ideologues who like to grab headlines and use social media to gin up, more rancor and anger within their base, and of course fundraising as well.
And you just summed it up.
All right, Maura Keller. By the way, today's the day that you announced that you're running for Congress. I appreciate you coming on the show first thing. I saw your video roll out. We'll share the links to your website and your socials at ronshowatl.com. Best of luck to you. Go out there and, again, best way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
Thank you, Ron. I greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Learn more about Maura Keller at our website. That would be Maura, Maura Keller.com. You'll find yourself cheering on Tucker Carlson. No, seriously. Next, when The Ron Show returns on America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn.
This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
In a few minutes, I'm going to play for you just about 90 seconds of time that'll have you questioning your liberal progressive bona fides as you go, yes, get him. Attaboy, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson? Seriously. First, I want to cover a story that we touched on a little bit yesterday, and that was the arrest of the Salvadoran native covering DeKalb County's No Kings Day protest, who was subsequently arrested by authorities in a sweep of a handful of less than a dozen arrested at protests in DeKalb County. There are now calls for his release from organizations like the Committee to Protect Journalists. It's gotten there, y'all. It's gotten there where now the DeKalb County CEO, Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, who, by the way, I reached out to over the weekend. I did send her it was just a text message, but I did send her a text message because I have that contact and have not heard back from her. She has not responded to the Committee to Protect Journalists either. They released a statement yesterday afternoon, shortly after a press conference by his attorney, who we'll talk to here in just a little bit. Well, actually, I say we'll hear from him in just a little bit of that press conference. First things first, let me read to you from the CPJ. They wrote a letter to DeKalb County Chief Executive Officer Lorraine Cochran-Johnson requesting that charges against Guevara be dropped. They have not received a reply from the office. Writing, "We are deeply concerned by the ongoing detention of Spanish-language journalist Mario Guevara by authorities in DeKalb County, Georgia. He must be released immediately and the charges against him dropped," according to CPJ U.S., Canada, and Caribbean Program Coordinator Catherine Jacobson. She continues, "Guevara was doing his job and reporting the news at the time of his arrest. It is alarming that the charges he is now facing could be a pretext to begin deportation proceedings against him." The Atlanta Journal-Constitution, by the way, has audio of his arrest. In fact, he was live streaming his arrest, and you can hear just how matter of fact and not like disturbing the peace, or what were the charges? There was some silly charges. Listen to the audio to this as it took place.
Vamos a movernos un poco porque las autoridades vienen avanzando hacia este lado y pues no sabemos realmente hasta dónde lo van a hacer retroceder.
He's live streaming in
Pero
Spanish
pues la
to his
policía
followers. Police
está
are moving
avanzando
forward quickly.
de manera rápida.
Next thing you know, they're approaching him.
Officer, I'm a member of the media, officer.
I'm a journalist, and they go to
Okay.
arrest him. Like, do you hear?
Let me finish.
He has to put his phone down. They're arresting him.
Can you take my phone, please? It's for my work. Don't leave there, please. Thank you, officer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's how innocuous the exchange was. What you heard him saying initially in Spanish was, "I'm here in Chambly where the authorities are trying to hold back the protest, which is turning a bit violent." This, according to Lautaro Greenspan with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Covering this, he writes that later, amid glitches in the video, Guevara can be heard saying, Officer arm with the media. Moments later, the video shows Guevara had been brought to the ground. Online police records, Greenspan writes, show Guevara was booked into DeKalb County Jail at 4:49 p.m. with a charge of obstruction of law enforcement officers. He was nowhere near they had to walk across a parking lot to get to him. And a charge of pedestrian walking on or along a roadway. Do you know how many people could be arrested for that any day of the week at any given time? Anyway, Gio Diaz with Diaz and Gaeta Law, which represents Guevara, said it was taking all measures to defend Mr. Guevara and protect freedom of speech as provided by the First Amendment. In the press conference yesterday, Gio Diaz explained to an English-speaking reporter what had happened.
I'm at the disadvantage here. Can you tell us what happened in English?
Sure, absolutely. So on Saturday there was a protest. It was a protest against the ICE raids. It was kind of in coordination with the No Kings protest that happened the same day as the parade. At some point, the officers, I think, declared, and you can kind of hear it in the videos, that it was an unlawful assembly, and they started moving people. Mario, as a member of the press, Mario seemed to be just kind of recording it live, so that everybody is, aware of something he's been doing for many, many years. He has a lot of experience doing it. At some point, they were asked to get off the road. He got off the road. They got on the sidewalk. 3 officers seemed to be paying extra attention to Mario, and they approached him at some point, and they arrested him. It's all on video. It's very unclear why they arrested him. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're in the initial stages of litigation, but it seems a bit, it doesn't seem like he really did anything wrong. He identified himself as a press member, which is also kind of disturbing. A press member that is very, very well known in the community, even with these jurisdictions and these police officers.
Yes.
So obviously we don't know if anybody really knew who he was, but it's hard to believe they didn't know who he was. When you look at the arrest, he was very respectful. So he was arrested. So upon getting booked and was booked in, it took a while for the processing to happen. Eventually we got him signature bonds a few days later. I think on Monday we were able to secure the signature bonds, posted the signature bonds, and then unfortunately, soon after posting the signature bonds, he was hit with an ICE hold.
His attorney Diaz goes on to explain the ICE hold situation.
And I can I say that in English? Yeah. Okay. So, he was placed with an ICE hold. And an ICE hold is a document that's issued by ICE that basically states that, if there's really no other reason to detain the person, meaning they've resolved their case, or they've paid the bond, or they've dismissed the charges, then the person has to be released. What the detainer does, it allows that jurisdiction to hold the person for an additional 48 hours. Now, if it's a jurisdiction that has a special arrangement with ICE, like a 287G, there's a little bit more flexibility with that 48-hour clock. But the 48-hour clock expires on DeKalb County. And that 48-hour clock, it expires, my law partner has the exact number, but it expires sometime in the afternoon, tomorrow late in the afternoon.
It would be today.
If he isn't released when that expires, then they're in violation of federal regulation, and we are prepared to file a habeas petition, us along with a legal team that we're preparing.
Now, we know we've been hearing a lot of these around the country where they just grab people, detain them, and hold them. So you have been able to garner any specificity as to why you grabbed Mario? I've known him for years.
That's the question here. I mean, we've looked at these videos over and over and over. It's hard to speculate as to what the thought process was of the officers at the time.
Right.
But we just have to go based on what we see and what the evidence is. And I think it's pretty clear that he was complying with what they were asking him. You can't arrest somebody if they're annoying you. It's not you can't break the law. You're not breaking any laws if you're annoying. But he was doing something that he's done for 20-something years. There's a vast amount of experience that he has dealing with situations like this, and he's never had any issues. Quite the opposite. We know him as somebody who's developed a reputation that to some other journalists is very frustrating because he has access to officers, to local officials that a lot of people wish they had. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a testament to his professionalism, and it's a testament to the way he does things and his fearlessness. But the fearlessness, there's a cautiousness to it. He understands the law. He's always complied with the law. His record is impeccable in this country. So it is this arrest is concerning, and this arrest is clearly concerning to members of y'all's community. who are journalists in the press, because it's although there's been a surge since the Black Lives Matter movement with detaining journalists, it's still rare. It's still a relatively rare occurrence here in the United States.
Do you believe that his arrest was retaliation for his speech?
I'm not going to speculate, but it's if our position is that he didn't do anything illegal, then the only thing he was doing was documenting the police's actions.
Yep.
So why was he arrested?
His daughter, Catherine, was, by the way, there at the press. Mario's daughter, Maura Guevara's daughter, Catherine, was there to speak her reaction to this arrest and his possible deportation as well.
In English, so my family and I, we thought that he would be released that same day. That's what we were hoping, and one day it turned into 2, turned into 3, and it just kept on. It became this whole thing. And we were okay, especially because talking to him, he had high hopes. He was telling us, no, operate as you normally would. Like, I'm okay, don't worry. And so we were like, okay, he's fine. But what really was terrifying was the ICE hold, because it's just under this administration. We don't know what that means for us. Temporary legal status may not mean anything with an ICE hold. So it did bring a lot of worries now. But, with, the explanations from the attorneys and everything, and knowing the next steps, it's kind of put us at peace a little bit. And, we're just hoping for the best, trusting in God at this point.
How hard was it Father's Day for him to be in jail?
It was horrible. It was horrible, especially because, I've just always been so close to him, so have my brothers, we've always been very, very close, and I just couldn't believe it. I had that night, the night of the arrest, we were so sure he was going to get out on Sunday. So we had gone and decorated, for Father's Day, the kitchen and everything. We had made it all cute and made, his favorite, desserts and stuff, and we were like, because he's gonna come home right on Father's Day, perfect. I ordered a cake and everything, and then just to find out that it wasn't gonna happen, it was very, very sad. We just had to bring everything down and cancel the cake order and but it was a very sad experience.
That is a story we will continue to keep an eye on. In fact, we may have some resolution by this afternoon. Will Mario Guevara be picked up by ICE? What will be the next step in the potential deportation process? There are a lot of unanswered questions. We'll obviously, hopefully know more or see his release by this afternoon and report back on that tomorrow. We have a couple more stories to cover. Public Service Commission race. We had a primary election yesterday. We'll give you the results of that. Also, the birth of a child to a woman brain dead in Georgia. Her body kept alive by healthcare professionals because of Georgia's abortion ban. They were uncertain what they were allowed to do. Attorney General Chris Carr seemed to be uncertain as to why they did that. There's a lot of questions as to why they did that. And what is the viability of this premature child? Discussion about rural healthcare, prenatal access, and more. And we'll discuss that. Plus, you're going to find yourself rooting for Tucker Carlson. I kid you not. When the Ron Show returns on America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Final segment of today's Ron Show. I want to cover a couple of stories real quick before I dive into the juicy 90-second clip of Tucker Carlson giving it to loathsome Senator Ted Cruz. I can't believe we're finding ourselves rooting for Tucker Carlson, but damn it, a broke clock is right twice a day, right? First, a story here locally, and a really sad one. Ross Williams at the Georgia Recorder reporting on this, and we'll have Melita Easters from the Georgia Win List on to discuss further tomorrow, by the way. Ross writing, the brain-dead pregnant woman who became a flashpoint in the national debate over reproductive rights in Georgia's 6-week abortion ban has delivered her baby, her family announced. Doctors told the family of 30-year-old mother and nurse Adriana Smith she had no chance of recovery after a series of blood clots in her brain left her brain dead in mid-February when she was about 2 months pregnant. Smith had been kept on life support since then to support the pregnancy. That's because officials at the hospital there, knowing that there's a 6-week abortion ban in the state of Georgia, figured she's 2 months pregnant. If we terminate her life, we terminate the viability of that pregnancy. And in Georgia, 6-week abortion ban, legally speaking, what do? Williams reporting the baby Chance was delivered Friday by emergency cesarean section and taken to the neonatal intensive care unit, the NICU. Smith's mother, April Newkirk, told 11 Alive News that the child was born prematurely, weighing, 1 pound, 13 ounces. April's mother, Newkirk, said she is calling for prayers for her grandson's safety and health at 1 pound, 13 ounces. That is so touch and go. She said, right now, we don't know everything because it's so early, so they can't tell everything. Prayer changes things, and we just hope and pray that he's okay. Newkirk told 11 Alive that her daughter would be taken off of life support Tuesday afternoon, which did become the case yesterday. Williams continues, Smith became a flashpoint in the debate over reproductive rights in Georgia's 6-week abortion ban after family told news outlets that doctors told them that while she had no chance of recovery, Smith's organs would be kept functioning so as not to violate Georgia law. Which seems to stymie Georgia's Attorney General, Chris Carr, because he said that the law does not require such action. He stated, there's nothing in the Life Act that requires medical professionals to keep a woman on life support after brain death. Removing life support is not an action, quote, with the purpose to terminate a pregnancy. So what will happen in future cases? We have no idea. April's mom, Newkirk, told Ross Williams that she's frustrated that Smith sought care for the blood clots that would go on to take her life. She said her daughter was released from the hospital without proper testing. Again, we'll have Melita Easter's executive director at the Georgia Win List on tomorrow to discuss this story further, and I'm sure a healthy discussion on prenatal care for women in rural Georgia. Of course, Georgia's 6-week abortion ban and the curious circumstances it often puts healthcare professionals in when trying to address the needs of the pregnant woman, and how sometimes addressing those needs comes at odds with that abortion ban. Yesterday in Georgia, we had a Public Service Commission primary election, statewide election, but for district seats. Jill Nolan, Amber Roldan reporting at the Georgia Recorder. I like the Georgia Recorder, by the way. I love independent journalism, and these folks do very well at it. 2 Democratic candidates for the Georgia Public Service Commission are headed to a runoff. Oh, boy. 3% of the population in the state of Georgia turned out for this. So you can imagine a Democratic runoff. Oh, boy. That'll happen next month. Keisha Shawn Waits, former Atlanta City Councilwoman and ex-state representative, top vote getter in the District 3 primary, but came just shy of the 50% threshold needed to avoid a runoff with Peter Hubbard. She ended the night with about 46% of the vote. Peter Hubbard, about 33% of the vote. Robert Jones, a former utility executive in California, came in third place. The District 3 race, they write, was upended when a leading candidate in the race, Daniel Blackman, had his eligibility challenged. Blackman, who came close to winning a seat on the commission in 2020, spent most of the early voting period trying to stay in the race. He was officially disqualified last week after he was able to prove that he met the 12-month residency requirement. Commissioners must live within a given district, but all Georgians can vote for every seat, meaning someone in South Georgia has a say in who represents Atlanta. It's a really quirky, weird thing. The winner next month will go on to face Republican Commissioner Fitz Johnson, who was appointed by Governor Brian Kemp in 2021. Johnson ran unopposed in the GOP primary. In the contested District 2 Republican primary, Tim Echols was leading Lee Munns with nearly 3/4 of the vote late on Tuesday, so he will face Democrat Alicia Johnson in November as he seeks a third term on the commission. Johnson ran unopposed in Tuesday's Democratic primary District 2, which, by the way, spans a swath of East Georgia. All right, I promised you I would get to this Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson kerfuffle. Sarah Fortney at The Hill reporting this. Now, Tucker Carlson and Senator Ted Cruz got into a fiery exchange on Tuesday over the senator's support for President Donald Trump and his posturing towards Israel in its escalating conflict with Iran. The conservative media personality on Tuesday released a clip from the interview set to be released in full later today, in which he grills Cruz on details about Iran and its demographic makeup. When Cruz does not know the answers Carlson is seeking, the host blasts the senator for failing to know the details of, quote, the country you seek to topple. It's a little awkward. Here is that audio.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute.
It's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump?
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay. Listen, when two vipers are going at each other, you back away and let them do it. But also, by the way, a lot of Donald Trump's old tweets are resurfacing. Back in November of 2011, Barack Obama will start a war with Iran. January of 2012, Barack Obama will attack Iran in order to get reelected. September of 2013, I predict that President Obama will at some point attack Iran in order to save face. November 2013, remember that I predicted a long time ago that President Obama will attack Iran because of his inability to negotiate properly, not skilled. What would Donald Trump 2011, 2012, and 2013 say about any president in, say, 2025 who is supporting a proxy war through Israel with Iran? It seems he would say, not skilled, looking to get reelected, or, I mean, maybe not in his case get real. I don't know. We don't know. We've heard a lot of ham-handed, well, maybe we can find a way constitutionally. Yeah. I'm one of the few people, by the way, left, right, or center, I don't know, maybe Tucker Carlson as well, who had some concern, some issues with us historically always poking the bear with Iran. I actually happen to think that we're in this situation with Iran where Iran may be at its absolute weakest. And yes, regime change would be welcome. I'm not going to sit here and question that. Regime change in Iran would be welcome because they're in a scenario where the population of Iran, by the way, loves American society. They desperately love American pop culture. The people are a peace-loving people. There was a time when Iran, prior to the 1979 revolution, would have been a very pro-American society. And a lot of that has to go back to the 1950s when we in the United Kingdom, the British government, sought to topple the democratically elected leader of Iran back then because, well, first of all, Iran was not a very pro-Israel faction back then. But also, Iran wanted to nationalize their fossil fuel industry, and we couldn't have that. We need cheap gas in this country, and so we toppled the democratically elected. Suffice to say that our meddling with the affairs of the Iranian government has never really worked out well for us. 1979 happened. Things have not been right since then. Iran has been a thorn in the side of Middle East peace efforts, obviously the sanctity of Israel's existence. We've shot down a plane full of their citizens in the 1980s. Never really apologizing for that. We did, Ronald Reagan did issue a written diplomatic note to Iran expressing deep regret. So I guess that has to count for something. Anyway, Netanyahu, again, is picking a fight, and we are apparently, according to Senator Ted Cruz, fully behind that and somewhat involved, or not. Anyway, MAGA is at odds. Marjorie Taylor Greene does not a war with Iran. Apparently, neither does Tucker Carlson, and we're just going to sit back and watch as MAGA dukes that out and hold our breath that we don't get dragged into a potential global crisis again with our own boots on the ground. Anyway, that'll do it for today's Ron Show. We air 9 a.m., 5 p.m. weekdays, America One Radio, 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn. Show notes, as always, at RonShowATL.com. My thanks to Maura Keller, running for Congress in Georgia's 3rd Congressional District, for joining us today. See you tomorrow. Take care.